On a warm and unusually quiet afternoon, sunlight streamed through the tall arched windows of the Marrow estate, pouring into the grand drawing room like liquid gold. Every surface reflected wealth and refinement, the gilded picture frames lining the walls, the deep crimson velvet curtains hanging in perfect symmetry, the marble floors polished so smoothly they mirrored the ceiling above. The room looked like something frozen in time, preserved in luxury and order. Yet at the center of this carefully curated elegance lay something that felt deeply out of place. A massive pile of money covered the long mahogany table, thousands upon thousands of dollars in crisp $50, $100, and $20 bills, scattered carelessly as though they had no value at all. It looked less like wealth and more like a challenge. Behind the table, slumped against the carved leather sofa, sat Alaric Voss. He was one of the richest men in the country, a billionaire whose name inspired awe in business circles and unease among those who worked beneath him. Known for his razor-sharp mind and a heart said to be colder than steel, Alaric had built his empire on discipline, control, and an unshakable belief that the world ran on self-interest. His eyes were closed, but he was not asleep. Alaric was waiting. Earlier that day, during a tense board meeting, he had overheard one of his executives sneer about the poor, how people who appeared humble were often the quickest to grasp at easy money. The comment had lingered in Alaric's mind long after the meeting ended, stirring something uncomfortable inside him. He had nodded in agreement at the time, but doubt had crept in later, quiet and persistent. Was dishonesty truly a matter of circumstance? Or was it a choice? That question gnawed at him until he decided to answer it in the most extreme way he knew how. He would stage a test, an open temptation, impossible to ignore. A fortune left unguarded, and he would pretend to sleep. But he wasn't testing his staff. Not his assistants or his executives. He already believed he knew their answers. He was testing Mara. Mara was the young daughter of his maid, Estelle. She was no more than 7 or 8 years old, small for her age, with tired eyes that carried more awareness than a child's should. Her clothes were clean but worn, stitched and patched so many times that the fabric itself seemed to tell a story of endurance. She rarely spoke unless spoken to, never asked for anything, and spent most days waiting quietly in corners while her mother worked. Alaric had noticed her months ago. Not because she was loud or troublesome, but because she was invisible. And something about that unsettled him. That afternoon, Estelle had stepped outside to tend to the linens, leaving Mara alone in the drawing room. That was when Alaric took his position on the sofa, loosened his tie, tilted his head back, and closed his eyes. He didn't know what he expected. Maybe the girl would panic and run. Maybe she would cry. Or maybe, quietly, desperately, she would take the money. What he did not expect was silence. Mara noticed the money immediately. Her steps slowed, and her breath caught in her throat. She stared at the table, eyes wide, not with greed, but with fear. Slowly, she moved closer, each step uncertain, as though the money itself might punish her for approaching. She reached out and brushed the edge of a bill with trembling fingers, then pulled her hand back. Her palm hovered in the air, shaking slightly. Alaric felt it then, the shift. The tension. Though his eyes were closed, he could feel the weight of her struggle fill the room. The sunlight illuminated her face, revealing smudges of dirt on her cheeks and the quiet exhaustion etched into her expression. She sniffed softly, a sound so small it nearly broke his resolve. Then she picked up a single bill. A $100 note. Alaric's chest tightened. This was the moment. Her fingers clenched around it briefly. He felt his breath falter. But instead of hiding it, she carefully laid the bill back down. She smoothed it flat with both hands, aligning it neatly with the others, as if restoring order could undo the temptation she had felt. Her lips trembled as she whispered something too soft for him to hear. She stood still for a long moment, staring at the pile. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. Then, slowly, she reached up to her hair and removed the small wooden hairpin holding her messy ponytail in place. It was simple, unevenly carved, clearly handmade. With great care, she placed it on top of the money. It was not a trade. It was not a bargain. It was an offering. Her voice, barely louder than a breath, filled the room. She spoke as if the money could hear her. She said she would never steal. That her mother had told her honesty was the only thing they truly owned, the only thing no one could take away. She said she wished she could help her mother buy medicine, buy new shoes, buy a warm blanket for winter, but not like this. Never with stolen money. Alaric felt a sting behind his eyes, sharp and unexpected. He stayed still, afraid that if he moved, the moment would shatter. When Mara finished speaking, she stepped back from the table. Her shoulders curled inward, small and guarded. She whispered to herself that she was strong enough to walk away. And she did. She crossed the room and sat on the floor near the window, folding her hands in her lap, eyes lowered, waiting quietly for her mother to return. Alaric could not pretend any longer. He opened his eyes. The sunlight felt harsher now, revealing a truth he had not been prepared to face. The money no longer looked powerful. It looked meaningless. He rose slowly and approached the table. The hairpin lay there, fragile and humble, resting atop the fortune like a crown. He picked it up, feeling its rough edges, its imperfections. It was worth nothing to the world, and everything to him. He turned toward the girl by the window and walked to her gently. When she noticed him, her eyes widened in fear, convinced she had done something wrong. He knelt in front of her and placed the hairpin back into her small hands. He told her she had taught him something no amount of money ever could. That her honesty had shown him a kind of wealth he had forgotten existed. He promised her, truly promised, that her life and her mother's life would change, not because of pity but because of respect. As sunlight filled the room once more, something inside Alaric Voss finally began to thaw.